It seems that we are now in a position where we've got to start to move forward on to next season. Decisions need to be made for players on the Duke roster. Stay or go, transfer or return, enter the NBA draft. So many things up in the air for this Duke basketball squad. Let's talk about it here today on Locked On Blue Devils.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us today on Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. On today's show, we're going to talk about the Duke basketball team turning the page to next year with decisions that are set to be made. We're seeing the transfer portal buzzing like crazy right now, and we'll start to figure out what guys will be playing for the Duke basketball team going into the upcoming season. We'll have that conversation with our pal Kevin Connelly from Ball Durham on today's show. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Like this video, if you will. Share it with your friends as you watch it on YouTube each and every day. And most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel. So thrilled with the growth that we've had on YouTube throughout the course of this basketball season. Let's keep that going. We've got basketball content coming your way each and every day. Spring football coming and going. We'll keep you updated on baseball and softball, all those things right here on Locked On Blue Devils. So without further ado, bringing him back onto today's program, the aforementioned Kevin Connelly's back with us once again, talking about the end of the year of the Duke basketball team. And we got to check in again, Kevin. It's been a few days. The Florida Gators are national champions, not our Duke Blue Devils. How you holding up?
You know, I'm doing fine, JJ. I think now that the season's over, the kind of shock of it all has subsided. I will say I'm still surprised that we're sitting here and Duke is not the national champions.
Same.
That's just, and that's not, I wouldn't call it bitterness or anything. It's just like, even as a neutral observer, as I said on your show before, I think they were the best team in the country. I think a bad 10 and a half minutes ended their season, which it does in the NCAA tournament. You have to play basically a great 40 minutes against a good team to advance in the NCAA tournament. So it didn't happen. I think if you are a Duke fan, there is some consolation. There's some dark humor in the fact that nearly the same exact way that Houston beat Duke, they lost to Florida.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I think there's some dark humor and maybe some ironic consolation in that. But no, let's be honest, and not to go too deep on Florida or whatever. When Florida beat, I want to say it was Auburn. Maybe they went to Auburn and won.
Yep.
Or maybe it was a game where they beat Alabama. It was like late January, early February. And to be honest, I hadn't watched much of Florida prior to then. And I watched them that game. And my first inclination was, that's a team that can win the national championship. And they did it. So hats off to them. You have to say that they were the best team in the country because they won the national championship. But yeah, they were the best team in the country because they won the national championship.
Yeah.
But I still think Duke was the best team and best roster in the country.
I totally agree with that. Florida's the first team or wins the national championship without a single top 100 recruit on their roster. That is hard to fathom, but that's the reality of the team that they had together. They went on a crazy run towards the end of the season. They win the SEC tournament, then they carry that into a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. They escaped a couple of really close calls. I think about the round of 32 game where they had to knock out the back-to-back defending champions in UConn. Walter Clayton hits a crazy turnaround 3-point jumper to survive in the Elite Eight. They get past Auburn in the Final Four, and they come back from 12 down in the second half against Houston to win the national championship. It was not Duke, though, that got the job done, and that's still what pains me the most, man.
Yeah, you know, JJ, and you can go back and check this. There's always that game in the NCAA tournament for the eventual champion.
Yeah.
There's always that game where you're up against the ropes. It looks like you're going to lose, and you come back and you win, and everyone looks back at that game. Florida had 2. I think UConn had them dead to rights, but more so Texas Tech had them really dead to rights. And they weren't able to overcome that, or they were able to overcome that and win the national championship. Duke wasn't able to overcome it. They didn't have that game. And I guess some of the dominant teams don't have that game. I guess it would have been Houston and be like, wow, we really dodged a bullet there. I will say more so 2019 than 2022 when the Zion and RJ Barrett team lost in the Elite Eight. And I'm watching the Final Four. I'm watching the Final Four that year in the national championship. And I'm thinking in my head, like, Duke beats every team on the floor in 2022. I didn't think it as much when they lost to Carolina in the Final Four, just because I think it wasn't like the shock of losing that game. It was more like the sadness losing that game. But like Monday night, watching the championship game, all I kept thinking was, like, if Duke's in this game, they're up 15 points right now. Like, so, like,
I felt that way too.
I compare 2024, or I guess 2025, to 2019 in that right, where I think that was much similar watching the Final Four in the national championship than 2022, thinking if that Duke team is in this game right now, they're up double digits.
Well, your similarities to Florida finding ways to win games in their tournament run to a championship, and then you equate it to 2019 with what Duke was able to do. I know they didn't win the championship that season, but I think about the UCF game and the tournament going all the way down to the wire for Duke, that Virginia Tech game in the Sweet 16, they got to claw it out at the very end. This year's Duke squad, Florida gets a barely win over UConn in the round of 32. Duke's just blowing everybody out in their tournament run up until that finish there. So they didn't really have that many opportunities for some dramatics.
Yeah, the only real white knuckle cruncher was, I guess, the end of the Arizona game.
Sure.
Where they're up 20 or whatever it was. Caleb Love stays hot. They get back within, I think, 6, but Duke has enough offense to get to the finish line. The only other game was that game, other than obviously the ending of the Houston game.
All right, so the season's now over for Duke. They've got decisions to be made, stay or go for so many different players. We'll begin to have those conversations with our pal Kevin Connelly when we return here in just a moment. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Supply House is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, into the basketball season here for the Duke Blue Devils. As they finish 35-4, they fall to Houston in the Final Four. Kevin Connelly from Ball Durham is here with me today talking about the end of the year for the Duke basketball team and almost certainly the end of Cooper Flagg's career wearing a Duke uniform as he walks off the floor for one final time. He makes it 5 players represented on the all-Final Four team, the all-tournament team. Once it was all said and done, 2 guys from Florida, 2 guys from Houston, nobody from Auburn, and Cooper Flagg was the Duke representative, as he's been throughout the entire season.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't say it like this, but like he was Duke basketball this year.
Yeah,
he was the show that everyone came to see. He delivered every night on that show. And you know what? And I say this, and now I think about it, I'll still give this team credit. I know the ACC wasn't great this year, but they won the ACC tournament without him. Like there was depth on this team. Now, did it show against Houston? No. But like this team, I've never seen them play worse basketball than the first half against Georgia Tech in
Right.
the quarterfinal of the ACC tournament. And Cooper Flagg played up until the last 3 minutes before he suffered the ankle injury. Like that half of basketball was probably even worse than the final 10 and a half minutes against Houston. That's how bad they were. But then he goes out, they come back, they beat Louisville, they beat Carolina, they beat Louisville. So like there was depth on this team and they accomplished something without him. But man, he was the star of the show, not just of this team, but of the conference, of the country. He delivered in every single setting. I know people are going to be fixated on the end of game miscues he had, but that shouldn't take away from what I think the best freshman season in Duke history. But I wouldn't go as far to say it's the best freshman season in college basketball history, just because I think you have to elevate guys like Carmelo Anthony and Anthony Davis over him because they capped it with national championships.
And I think that's totally fair. I think Flagg was on his way to being in that conversation, and then it wasn't to be. So now he's headed off to the NBA. Likely, I'm sure we'll get at some point.
JJ, you're not in on the NIL package. Bring Cooper Flagg back to Duke. You're not subscribing to that.
Well, look, a spoiler alert. We'll have our scholarship chart up here in just a moment, and as is customary with the Locked On scholarship charts, he's going to be listed for all 4 years as a college basketball player until he tells us that he is heading off to the NBA. But when we look at him going to the next level, I guess the biggest question now, Kevin, is simply put, where is he playing? Who's he playing for? Who wins the lottery when you go to the next level?
You know, I think lottery night is like a really fun night in the NBA, just because like every team has that glimmer of hope that they can get the number 1 overall pick. And obviously it's much more exciting some years than others. The Zion year, like the reaction you saw from the New Orleans Pelicans marketing staff and ticket office when they got the number 1 pick and they were getting Zion Williamson. Obviously a couple years ago, Victor Wembanyama, everyone knew he was going to be the number 1 overall pick. And when the San Antonio Spurs get the number 1 overall pick, everyone goes crazy because they have the next best thing at basketball. I think that's what it's going to be like this year. I think whichever team gets the number 1 overall pick is going to have that big euphoric celebration because they are getting Cooper Flagg. And I kind of compare this draft similar to that 2019 draft. So I think it's very deep. Like you look at Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, Con Knippel, Kaman Malawach, who I think is, despite his struggles against Houston, I still think he's going to be a really good pro. This could be a really, really deep draft. So I think a lot of teams in the lottery are going to be happy with the guy they eventually pick, but whoever gets that number 1 overall pick, they're gonna have some big time celebration that night.
Yeah, Trey Johnson from Texas is a projected top 10 pick. He's already declared. I would expect Kasparas Yakichonis there for Illinois to want to go off to the NBA and start his career there. So Monday, May 12th is the day of the draft lottery this year in 2025, and we'll start to get some of those answers. But I bring up the aforementioned scholarship chart here for Duke basketball. For our viewers watching on YouTube, you can take a look at where Duke's at this season, where they are currently going into 2025, 2026. And as it stands right now, with 4 signees in their freshman class, Cameron Boozer, Caden Boozer, Shelton Henderson, Nicholas Amenia, there is no open scholarships for Duke basketball if every person returns that has another year of eligibility. That would be seniors, Tyrese Proctor and Malik Brown, junior Caleb Foster, sophomore Darren Harris, sophomore Isaiah Evans, Cooper Flagg, Pat Gamba II, Con Knippel, and Kaman Malawach would be sophomores as well. But as we just said, Kevin, let's start to work through some of this. We would figure many of these players are going to go to the NBA, and maybe someone could make a decision to transfer away.
Yeah, I mean, you could put a line through Flagg, Knippel, and Malawach. Like, I think 3 get opened up right there. And then we can get into deeper discussion. And also, JJ, I mean, if you've been on the prowl on social media today, a lot of chatter going on about Duke potentially adding to this scholarship chart down at that those freshman quartet, potentially adding another one. So if you believe those rumblings you hear on social media, there could be some
Nate Ament that you're referring to.
Yes.
Yeah.
There could be some good news coming Duke's way. in the next couple days or weeks. Who knows how long until the announcement? But again, social media, those rumors trending towards Duke's favor. And I know people would try to read into all that, but that's just kind of the scuttlebutt out there right now. So that would be in that 14th spot.
Yeah, and so that means, obviously, Duke, you only got 13 scholarships at the NCAA level, which means the Blue Devils are starting to figure guys are making these decisions, right? John Shires basically already said on the Dan Patrick Show he wasn't even entertaining a conversation with Cooper Flagg about returning. That's a given. He's going to go off to the NBA. So, there's a scholarship that opens up and that sort of thing. We're seeing Duke linked to some portal names as well.
JJ, remember going into this season, you get 2 more scholarships.
That's right.
So you go up to 15.
That's right. So we've got some to work with then
for
the Duke basketball squad.
Yeah. Now, I don't know, will they have 15 scholarship people on the roster? I kind of doubt that. But the NCAA is expanding its scholarship rules, and going into the offseason, you do have up to 15 slots that you could use.
And that, to your point, we saw Spencer Hubbard, a walk-on turned scholarship player these last couple of years for the Duke team. So there are possibilities for Duke to do that if they would so choose there. But looking at this and continuing to kind of throw ideas out there with Duke and some of the decisions that are looming, I know Tyrese Proctor, Kevin, is another big one that a lot of people are talking about. He's got 1 more year of college eligibility left. He's, a top 50 player in most people's big boards when you start to look at the draft. So not guaranteed to be one of those top 30 first-round picks where the money really drops off once you get into the second round. But then I guess there is still always the possibility that he could play college basketball elsewhere next season, although that would really, really hurt. It hurt me if we saw Proctor playing elsewhere.
Well, JJ, it's really interesting because I was actually looking at some numbers earlier today because there was the announcement that JT Toppin is going to return to Texas Tech next year, and it's rumored that he's getting a $4 million NIL package. And, I mean, a $4 million NIL package is more than what an NBA late first-round NBA draft pick would make, which is crazy. I mean, there are going to be college basketball players next year that are getting more money in NIL than what late first round and second round picks are going to get. So I think for Tyrese Proctor, in his case, it kind of comes down to, do you want to make a lot of money? I mean, I hate to put it that way, but like you would imagine with Duke's NIL fund and what they're going to have, I mean, Tyrese Proctor would be in line for a big payday, and especially what he would get given it's likely if he gets drafted, he's a mid to late second round pick, and that's a 2-way contract. And we're still talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, but compared to what he would be able to make, quote unquote, guaranteed returning to Duke for a sophomore season for a senior season, as compared to being in the G League and trying to fight his way onto an NBA roster on a 2-way deal. I mean, the better business decision could be returning not just to Duke, but to college basketball, even if he opted to transfer. I think talking about transfers, obviously Caleb Foster's name is going to be brought up a lot, considering how he was kind of out of the rotation from January up until the postseason and worked his way back into the rotation a little bit towards the beginning of March and into the NCAA tournament. And then I think the biggest name that everyone's going to want to know about is Isaiah Evans, because he's shown the ability to be that electric shooter coming off the bench. He has good size, but needs to get stronger. I think biggest concern of his game is defensively in terms of his consistency. And if he could come back to Duke, I think a lot of people would feel really good about this team's chances of potentially putting together another run deep into March next year.
Without a doubt. I think that's the big decisions that are looming for this Duke team. I think we'll really start to see the ball roll when we hear from Proctor, Foster, Evans, those names that you're talking about. I'd love to see Isaiah Evans come back for a sophomore season, man. I feel like that's one of the gotta-haves for the Duke team going into next year.
And I mean, from what you can see, I know a lot of outlets released mock drafts on Tuesday morning coming after the national championship game. And you could see Isaiah Evans in some of those mock drafts from like respected sites, ESPN, Bleacher Report, SB Nation, all those kind of sites that do NBA mock drafts. He's back end of the first round in some of them, and then in others, he's mid to late second round. So in terms of wherever place you look, the variation is quite big when it comes to Isaiah Evans and where he could potentially go in the NBA draft.
To your point, we shall see. We shall see how all of this plays out with decisions set to be made by these Duke basketball players. Other things need to happen this offseason for Duke basketball. We'll tell you a little bit about that when we come back on the other side of this break here on Locked On Blue Devils. Thank you so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen and first watch each and every day. For your second listen, make sure that you go check out the Locked On NFL Draft Show with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every single day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Locked On NFL Draft. Be sure to check that out after today's show. All right, let's keep moving forward here. Kevin Connelly's here with us from Ball Durham. We're talking about the Duke basketball team going into the upcoming season. Something else worth noting, Kevin, a storyline sort of to follow over these next few weeks. Duke's got a staff opening on the Jon Scheyer bench as Jay Lucas took off and became the head men's basketball coach at Miami. Now the year's over, and you can start to turn your attention there.
Yeah, that's another part of the offseason that's going to be interesting for Duke and see who fills that role. And I might add that you never know what could happen, especially how a team is going to come together that you put together in the transfer portal. But in terms of rankings of transfer portal guys, Jay Lucas is doing a heck of a job getting talent down there at Miami, and you kind of knew he would.
Yep.
So, I mean, Miami on paper had a lot of talent coming into this year, and it didn't formulate on the court. But it seems like Jay Lucas, he's going to have the Hurricanes back competing near the top of the ACC in not that too long of a time.
Yeah, Jon Scheyer had been very complimentary throughout the tournament run of the work that Justin Robinson had done for the Blue Devils down the stretch in the tournament run. You know, the former Duke player who had been their director of player development. Duke's got Mike Schrage, former Elon head coach, had been a Coach K staffer. He's their director of basketball ops. You know, he's able to take care of some of the coaching aspects there. And so there's that one spot we're talking about, obviously, but there could also be, you know, movement from Chris Carrawell, Emmanuel Dildy, Will Avery, current guys on the bench, maybe walk away, maybe take another job, maybe go, you know, you just never know. But this is the time of year where we see those things start to change, or even, you know, a month or two down the road, because you go back to the NBA season coming to a close, and that's where Duke really saw Emile Jefferson step away and take that job with the Boston Celtics as a coach.
Yeah, and even to fill that last vacant assistant coaching role on the bench, like that's something that, like as you said, it could be filled in like August.
Yeah,
and I think I'm trying to remember back when Emmanuel Dildy got hired. I think that was June or July or even into August. Obviously, we know Emile Jefferson left around the summertime as well. So it's not something that, like, if you're waiting for the Duke assistant coaching vacancy to be filled right away, you could be waiting a couple of weeks or months.
Yeah, I think especially once you get into, you know, putting together the summer recruiting, that you're out and visiting the big tournaments and that sort of thing, it'd be great to have a full staff out there and able to make things happen. But we shall see how it goes for the Duke team. Man, I keep thinking about the end of the year for the Duke basketball team. It's been fun to read the comments of the shows so far this week and to see stories that people are putting out there, Kevin, because just everybody can't believe that the season came to a close and this Duke team was not the last team dancing.
Yeah, you know, the NCAA tournament, you can have some abrupt endings to your season, and unfortunately it happened for Duke. I'll continue to say that I still think this was the best team in the country. I think this was the best collection of talent in the country. But as I said on your show earlier this week, the most talented team doesn't always win in a single elimination tournament.
And as people could see on YouTube, I keep throwing my head into the microphone here, Kevin, because it's just total disappointment and just sadness that wasn't to happen. So the further away we get, I'm sure we'll look back a little bit differently on this one. A Final Four run for Duke, ACC regular season and tournament champions, a 1 seed, a lot to celebrate in the first 3 years of John Shire. But man, this really stings and hurts a little bit. So we'll see what Duke does in the portal in the coming days. We'll see more decisions come and go. And Kevin, I know that you're going to be on top of it all over at Ball Durham.
Yeah, Ball Durham, we're on top of everything in the offseason, transfer portal, guys leaving, coming, going, staying, everything you could possibly want recruiting-wise. Come read us every single day over at balldurham.com.
See you soon, Kevin. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, JJ.
All right, that's Kevin Connelly joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Be sure to go check out all his work over at Ball Durham. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. We're on Instagram and TikTok as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcast. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.